Hello everyone, this is Nupurdani and this is online Jamb class academy. So today's our topic is natural habitat. So let's start our today's topic. So what is natural habitat? Does anyone know that what is natural habitat? It is a place where a person, animals, birds, species survive. Everyone, for a human being, our home is a natural habitat. We used to live there, right? So let's start our first point. What is natural habitat? A natural habitat is an ecological or environmental areas where specific species live. As I told you, ecological or environment area. Likewise, if it's a natural, it's not artificial or the anthropogenic, that is man-made. It is a natural habitat, so it is an ecological or the environment area where a specific species lives. It is a place in nature that particular species called home. For example, we take an example of the zoo. Actually, zoo is not a natural habitat because it is made by an human being, so it is not a natural habitat, but we just take an example of a zoo to help the picture what this it means. So from this we can recognize or recall what is the natural habitat in terms of the animals and the birds. So the developer of the zoo need to study where a specific animals live. Likewise, if the for example, if we take the penguins in the desert, they cannot survive. And if we take these camels to the glaciers or the ice area, they cannot survive, right? So they can replicate the natural habitat. See, if we take the penguins to the desert area, they cannot survive, as I told you. So they need the specific terms or the specific area or the specific environment to acclimatize, to adapt for their survival or the fittest, like for the food, for the feeding, right? For the predator cycle, predator prey cycle, everything need to be maintained in the balance so that otherwise they cannot survive. So let's take an example of the chimpanzees. See, in a natural habitat in the forest, chimpanzee got the trees, among the trees, so they can swing, or for the foods like monkeys, chimpanzees and gorillas and all. But in the zoo they have to do the setup where they can be placed among the trees, where they can swing and search for the food, right? Then plants and the other organism also have natural habitat as well. As I told you, some desert plant, that is xerophytic plants, cannot survive into the water, right? And some water plants, like, so they cannot survive in the desert. As we know that one of the example is cactus, as it can be seen in this area, but main the adaptations or main is that is in the desert area, right? So some plants are based for the saline water, so they cannot survive or they cannot grow in the fresh water. They need the salinity for their survival. So let's discuss some of the different types of the natural habitats and the species that reside in them. From them, you can recall or you can memorize that what is the natural habitats for the plants and animals and other different species, not just plants and animals. There are lots of species, insects, right? Mollusk and all the different types of animals, all the different types of plants, all the different types of different species lives in the biodiverse area, or the have the different diversity, have the different community of the different genera of the different classes, all need to survive. Then they need their natural habitat. We have one of the example is that we have listened that due to the deforestations, animals used to come on the road, they used to come to the villages, towns and cities, and used to kill the cattles and all that other, they just kill the man, human beings and all the things. Why? Because if we are going to deforest, if we are going to cut down the trees, that is their natural habitat where they are living, if we going to decade, if you going to decrease or if you going to remove their home, then what will they do? For example, if someone comes to your house and tell them to get out of your house, where you will live? Obviously you will come on the road, right? So that's not the thing. You have to live your in your home, that is your natural habitat where you are surviving, right? So for animals, for plants, there are also different areas, different environmental areas, ecological areas, biodiverse area where they are surviving. Some of the plants used to grow near the wetland areas like marshes and blocks. They cannot grow in the desert or any xerophytic places. Okay, So let's start our first natural habitat. See, the types of the natural habitat. There are many different types of habitat. Different species have adapted to different habitats over time. See, there are lots of and lots of different types of habitat. Some are the subclassified, substratified from this. Like if you are going for the forest, then different types of the forest. That is also an example. If you are going for the ecosystem, then there are different types of ecosystem, right? So a species come to rely on its natural habitat for the resources that includes a place to mate, like for their breeding, for their babies, then a place to raise their young, right? They have to increase the population, because when they are laying their eggs, for example, when they are laying the babies or the eggs or uh, tadpoles or anything, and that time they are also going to killed by the predators. So if for example if they are laying the three eggs or four eggs, then one or two eggs may be damaged or maybe dead by the predators. So they used to maintain their cycle, as I told you, food web, food cycle, energy, nutrient cycle. So place to raise their youngs and foods. And the two factors that really derive a habitat are temperature and the precipitation. The main limiting factors for the classifications or the stratifications of the natural habitat are the temperature, that is the high temperature or the lower temperature, and the precipitations, that is a higher rainfall or the lower rainfall. Precipitations, its another name is rainfall, as we know that, right? The first of all, our natural habitat, we will focus on the forest. We have listened to many examples of the forest, like many people goes for the adventures and tourisms and different types of activities for the forest. But in forest, how you can recognize that this is a forest? By the trees, by the populations of the trees. In forest also there are different types of forest, right? A forest is a type of habitat that's a dense populations of tree. Dense, it means huge. That is not just sparsely distributed or dispersed, right, like that. It is dense populations of the trees, and some of the evergreen trees have the larger canopies. So we can see that this is a very dense population. This is a very dense forest. We sometimes used to use the word dense forest. How we can say that? Why it is called dense forest? When you go to the desert or when you go to the different types of forest where there are low trees, lesser number of trees, then we cannot say that that the dense forest, because dense forest, it means there are the higher number of the trees, dense populations of the trees. There are the forest all over the world, and many diverse species live inside this type of habitat. Forest is also a natural habitat, and it is a habitat, it is a abode of every living being, biotic community, right? So, in order for the forest to survive, it needs have to large or the water source that will support a large amount of trees. How the tree will survive, how the tree will grow, how the tree will get nutrients, and how the tree will absorb the water without, if there is a lower rainfall. So in order the forest to survive, it is forest, the name is absolutely, it's forest itself, the name is forest, it means they have the large amount of water, they need the higher amount of water. And if there is a higher amount of water available, that means the precipitation is available, then only the dense population of the trees we can see, right? Now we will go for the next point. Tropical rainforests are just one type of forest. See, as I told you, there are lots of and lots of different types of forests. So one of its example here is mentioned is tropical forest. You can also study another different types of the forest. Okay. So while they cover only 7% of the earth, all over whole earth, only the 7% of the earth is covered by the tropical rainforest. They are the home to more than 50% of all the plants and animal species. See, as I told you, in forest there are lots of and lots of species, animals, habitat, diversity, community, everything survive. They used to live their natural habitat. Right, so it just covers the 7% of the earth portion. Tropical rainforests are present only on the 7% of the earth, but they are the home to more than 50% of, over 100%, more than 50% of the plants and animals used to live in the tropical rainforest or the tropical forest, right? There is abundance of water. Then only there's a plants and animals survive, because they need the water for their survival. As you know that food and water is the mandatory, air, water and food, right? A year round high temperature, they need the temperature, the plenty of the resources for the species to survive. What type of the resources? Like sunlight, As I told you, the temperature, rainfall, like they need the predator and prey relationship, then only they can survive. They need a place to raise their young ones, they need the place to mate, right? So these all the different resources, like they also need the habitat. Main thing is habitat, the place. Many animals used to make their boundaries by the different portion of it. If we remove that, if the forest deforestation is done, then what will happen? They will be homeless, right? Because it's the natural habitat. Natural habitat in terms of the layman language, it means it's their home, our house, right? The red-eye forest, the red-eye tree frog's natural habitat is tropical rainforest of various countries. As I told you, this is one of the examples of the tropical rainforest. The animal that they live in the lower areas of forest near stream, ponds, and the rivers, because the frog used to maximum frogs used to live near the water, as we have seen, right? So they used to live near the stream, ponds, and rivers. The frog needs these water resources for their babies that are born tadpoles, because frog babies are born as a tadpoles, and they need the water resources for their babies. Otherwise, their babies cannot survive. They lay their eggs in the water. Okay, let's now move towards the next natural type of habitat. So, say the wetlands. First one is forest, now the wetlands. Why it is called wetlands? Because water is present at least a part of the year. That is the main characteristics or to identify the wetlands. Wetlands are the another natural type for many animals. A wetland is an area where water is present at least a part of the year, either in the sparse amount or the higher amount, or the patches or the river streams. Different ways, different types of water is present, but water is present because it is mandatory to recognize or to characterize for the wetlands. Otherwise, it cannot be called as a wetland. This water is usually present during the portion of the plant growing season. If water is present, obviously they are interdependent. If water is present, plant will grow. If plant is growing, it means the water is present. So they both are interrelated, everything is connected with each other. Then water can be in the form of ponds, rivers, streams, lakes, as I told you. Even in the swamps and bogs and every different types of the water are present. And the marshes are the types of the wetlands where many different species of plants and animals live. See, as I told you, marshes are present. That is also a type of the wetland. When you will study the different types of the wetlands, then you know that there are lots of and lots of different types of wetlands are present. So here one of the examples are the marshes. Other that is a common, we have known that ponds and streams and rivers and lakes, oceans and all, right? But these marshes are the types of the wetlands where many different species lives. In species, you will understand, or you have to remember what in species, plants and animals both will come. Amphibians need places like marshes to survive because these habitats offer both water and the land for them to live in. See, amphibians, another name is dual living, because they can live both on the water and on the land. That is on the terrestrial as well as the aquatic. That is in another term, right? Marshes are also home to other species such as painted turtle, muskards, and small birds. Where the small birds are available, muskards and turtles, they also live there. There is an abundance of the insects that live around the marshes too, which make an excellent food source for all the animals to survive. See, here some amount of water is present, some amount of the plants are present, so everything is in the under control point of view. So that is an excellent food source for the animals to survive. Not so rainfall, not so plants, or not so high temperature. Everything is maintained, right? So this is also an excellent food source for all the animals. Then third one is desert. We have studied two. First of all, the forest, and other is a wetland, and third one is the desert. And on the opposite spectrum of forest and wetlands are desert. See, as I told you, this is totally opposite of the forest and wetlands. That's why it's called desert. No rainfall, or the least amount of the rainfall is present. The temperature is very high. Okay. So desert are defined as having less than 10 inches of rainfall per year and a very low rate of precipitation. As I told you, rainfall is very less or the least. They are very dry and takes unique species to call the desert home. Not every species can survive in the desert. Unique species to call. Common example is camel that we used to know, right? The Gila monster is one animal that live in the desert. See, this is a Gila monster. That is one animal that lives in the desert. Here is there are lots of and lots of example, but I have mentioned here just one. These they are